Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am JP, the Outlaw, the voice that makes them moist, and here to give you my review of NXT, April 18, 2017. NXT was pretty good this week, especially after the break, after NXT takeover New Orleans. They did pretty good, especially with the returning Johnny Gargano. Now, Johnny Gargano's story, I believe, is far from over. I mean, just with what they're doing, with how they're building it, especially with Candice LeRae. And Candice LeRae herself adds another layer of storyline as far as Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa is concerned. If it was me, if I'm booking this is what I would do. I would take Johnny Gargano, let him win the NXT championship, okay? Now, I wouldn't take it off of Aleister Black just yet. I think the better story leading up to TakeOver Brooklyn 3 would be Johnny Gargano capturing the championship from Aleister Black. Only after he captures the championship, Tommaso Ciampa comes back, attacks Candice LeRae. Now, have Candice LeRae be the beacon on which this storyline continues. Because you can do a lot with that. With that alone, you can have Tommaso Ciampa outside, waiting on Candice LeRae to leave the Performance Center and just pull up, abducts Candice LeRae. Have Johnny Gargano looking for his wife for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until he calls out Ciampa. And Ciampa says, I have your wife. I have your wife locked up in key. The only way you get her back, you fight me for the NXT championship. Now, again, a little unbelievable. You can easily have Ciampa attack Candice LeRae, put her in a hospital. You can fake a coma storyline, and really have this geared up to push Johnny Gargano to that next level, which I think is where they need to be at as far as this storyline. I don't see this storyline advancing any further without Candice LeRae. Okay? All right? And I feel as though, Johnny Gargano, with more time, can be a major player in NXT. You got to give him more time. He's a vanilla midget, and all vanilla midgets don't get over like that. So you got to take your time with him, build him appropriately, and then see where you can take him from there. So, moving on. They opened the show with Johnny Gargano and his wife. Johnny Gargano challenging for the NXT Championship. Also, happy to come back to NXT. He felt like this place was missing. It was a part of him that was gone. And here it is. Now, first order of business since Johnny Gargano is back. Of course, he challenges for the NXT Championship. But Candice LeRae challenges Zelina Vega in the main event. Just to close that storyline up, because I think Zelina Vega, Amish, Johnny Gargano, and Candice will have a better story once Johnny Gargano moves to the main roster. I truly believe that. Johnny Gargano, would I put him on SmackDown? No. Would I probably put him on Raw in a smaller capacity? Maybe move the whole cruiserweight division over there with the Johnny Gargano, because I think he can be the featured star of that division. So you'll have two Daniel Bryan-like entities on Raw and SmackDown. Of course, Daniel Bryan being himself, but Johnny Gargano pretty much holding down a resemblance to Daniel Bryan on Raw. I think that'd be perfect for Johnny Gargano, along with the 205 live roster. You could throw at least a half an hour of just 205 stuff up there if they wanted to. If we're booking actual wrestling shows versus segment here, wrestling segment. You dig me? Moving on, Ricochet versus Fabian Aichner. Decent match, pretty high flying match here. Of course, he wins with the 630 splash off the top rope. In a interview package after the match with Finn Balor's wife, I can't think of her name right now, but in that interview package, he's just excited to be in NXT. He hears this is where all the stars are made, like your Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, and even your Shinsuke Nakamura's. He's happy to be here, and he's happy to go to that next level on NXT. I'm all behind Ricochet. I think Ricochet is one of if not one of the best talents they have on NXT. I think he should be pushed to the goddamn moon. Give him time, let him work on his mic skills, and he's not a bad promo. I just think, he's a little too loose. Him being a high flyer, I think he should deliver more serious promos, because you don't want to come into that area of the mundane with which what half of the 205 roster did straight out the gate. Outside of Neville, and I would say maybe what's that? I can't think of his name. Outside of Neville and another cat, but for the most part, all of them are generic. So you don't want to come into that realm of generic when you're dealing with a Ricochet. Again, Ricochet just needs a title. I think he needs a title, and he needs to be representing whatever brand that he is on. Of course, that's just my opinion. War Raiders versus the Metro Brothers, which they reminded me of that tag team from back in the day, Domino, and I forget the other guy's name, Marv, and they was fucking like greasers from back in the day. If you can remember that, I think it was like early 2000s. If you remember who they are, leave a comment. Let me know who the hell that is. But the War Raiders are going into a nice, very nice title opportunity with due time. They've already ran through Heavy Machinery, and also they ran through Heavy Machinery and Santino, Samatelli, and Riddick Moss already. So, they're just picking up wins on their way to the tag team championships. The tag team championships on NXT. I would rather see them challenge Undisputed at some point soon. And, if we can get them challenge Undisputed, that way when they go to takeover Brooklyn 3, they could take the titles off of Undisputed. You can have Undisputed hold the titles all the way until then. Especially with the angle of Roderick Strong versus Pete Dunne, because you don't know when Dunne is going to come back and seek his revenge against Roderick Strong. Of course, War Raiders pick up the win. Excuse me for sneezing. Of course, War Raiders pick up the win. That takes us into a segment with Shayna Baszler, where she pretty much checks the whole women's division inside of NXT. She walks into the locker room. Look, I'm putting everybody on notice. If you don't want to hear what I got to say, you can leave now. Dakota Kai steps up. So don't be surprised if Dakota Kai gets chokes out in the next 2 weeks or something, because she should have set her punk ass down. But pretty much that's the end of the segment. She tells all of the rest of the women that decided to stay, look, I'm the champion now. There won't be no, let me get a title shot. You got to earn it. And if I give you a title shot, then, we'll see what happens from there. If, you can go with, the Queen of Spades, I think her name is, or what she's running with. Lars Sullivan versus Killian Dane in a hard-hitting match, which is basically a no disqualification match, which is pretty good. Two big guys. You don't expect to see no aerial moves or none of that good stuff. These gimmick matches for the big guys is what you do to hide their imperfections. Just to throw it out there. So when you get a gimmick match with a Lars Sullivan and a Killian Dane, just expect very little wrestling. Expect what they gave you. Chair shots, table shots. I'm surprised that they powdered in this, which is just bleeding. But I can see that being a complete accident because of Lars Sullivan being still so green. Of course, Lars Sullivan picks up the win. Killian Dane is going on to the main roster on SmackDown Live. So I can't wait to see what they do with Sanity. But we'll talk about that later today. Candice LeRae versus Selena Vega. Great match, especially for the women's division, to close out the show. Of course, interference from Cien Almas and Johnny Gargano. Just to take you to the tail end of this match, they put in dual Johnny escapes. So Candice LeRae has the Gargano escape onto Selena Vega, as well do Johnny Gargano have the Gargano escape onto Andrade Cien. So they both tap out. This will probably be the last time we'll see Andrade and Selena Vega down here in NXT. I wouldn't mind to see them come back every once in a blue like they used to do with Sami Zayn. I remember they brought Sami Zayn back for Shinsuke Nakamura, which I thought was one of the best NXT matches that they had in a long time. So I could see them doing that, but like I said before, the story here, as you build Candice LeRae up, you get her to that number one contendership for the women's title. You have Tommaso Ciampa come out, kidnap, or just brutally beat up Candice LeRae. Put her on the shelf for about 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe even close to a month. You have that incident fuel Johnny Gargano's revenge. Johnny Gargano, of course, wins the NXT Championship, and then you have Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa at the main event for the NXT Championship at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3. But that's how I would book it. Anyway, moving on. JP the Outlaw is out. I have coffee to drink. I have a cigarette. I need to go and relax. It's Sunday. I will be back with my opinion of the roster shakeup and how they should be moving certain players into certain positions. We'll go over all of this later today. Of course, join the Outlaw. Don't forget to follow. I'm on Facebook. If you want to follow me there, JP Outlaw Labcast. Only thing you got to do is type in JP the Lab, and it'll pop right up. Also, you got the JP Outlaw Labcast on YouTube, where we're going into JP Universe mode, where I take the current WWE roster off of WWE 2K18 and I make my own set of matches. I book my own shows, and you see how I lead up to WrestleMania, the storylines, and so on and so forth. Join me if you want to. If you're into something like that, you can always just click on the channel, watch those first 3 episodes, and you can see what direction we're going in. I am JP the Outlaw. I'm out of here. Finish up my coffee. Peace.